Hi everyone! Thanks for being with me for another month on Patreon. I'm here today to share another space swatching. Today we're going to concentrate on one of my favorite colors, teal. We're going to do a teal space swatch today. The colors we're going to use are Daniel Smith Indigo for the darkest color. Then we have some phthalo turquoise for the medium. And then we're going to use Cascade Green in there as well. This is probably my favorite watercolor paint ever. It is a granulating paint, which is something we really haven't talked too much about. But granulating paints basically is how smooth the paint lays out. So if it has a very consistent texture, it doesn't granulate very much as it dries. Granulating paints almost look a little bumpy as they dry. Basically, the pigments in a granulating paint as they dry clump together. And it creates these really cool sort of textures. The colors in Cascade Green are absolutely beautiful. I love how they granulate as they dry. It's just really cool. You'll see it kind of in this finished painting as we go, but those are the three colors that we will be using today for the space swatch. I am using, I don't remember which paper this is, it's just a piece of scrap that I had laying around. It's either Canson or Strathmore, one of the lower grade ones, so I'm not sure which one it is, but definitely not Arches. You can tell Arches by that, the texture of it. I'm using my number 4 brush, and I've got a cup of water over here. So I'm going to go in first with some indigo. I want it pretty thick, not too much water. I don't want it to do too much flowing. I'm going to lay it right down at the top and sort of that thin, varied, not a straight line. We want bumps in there. All right, so I got my indigo down first. I'll come in with some phthalo, maybe a little bit more watery than the indigo because we want it to flow a little bit more. We'll add that on. And I'm going to actually mix it up into the indigo so we don't have that straight line, right? Rinse off the brush. Don't want any paint left on it. Tap it on the side just a little bit to get some of that water off. And then I'm going to come in underneath and start blending it out a little bit. And I can see here that this phthalo really loves to travel. So I'm actually tipping the paper up a little bit so it doesn't flow down too much. I would rather it go back up a little bit. So I'm just kind of encouraging, using gravity to help me out there. All right, and then I'm going to come in with some Cascade Green. And put that underneath. Cascade Green really likes to work into the other colors, so I think that's actually going to help me. You can see it kind of push into the turquoise. So we have the turquoise wanting to push out and the Cascade wanting to push in, so it actually works pretty nice. So you can see as I'm laying down the Cascade Green, it just looks really fairly green. Kind of a lovely sort of color. It blends really nicely with the turquoise, but as it dries you'll start to see some other colors come out. You'll see a more turquoisey blue color and a little bit of like gold or brown, which is cool. I'm just coming in to get a little bit more turquoise because that Cascade pushed in there pretty hard, and I want it to come out a little bit. Add a little more Cascade in there. All right, I will let that dry. I will come back and add a second layer in a moment. Okay, we are mostly dry and ready for layer 2. Kind of funny. I'll do a quick turnaround here. As I was painting the first one, the cat decided that she wanted to sit on my lap while I was painting. So now I was literally just stuck here watching paint dry. Fun. Anyway, so let's take a look at how it dried. You can see the lovely granulation that I was talking about with the Cascade Green. The clumping parts are like that dark greenish, sort of brownish, golden color, but you can see it just makes some super lovely texture. I love Cascade Green so much. Anyway, let's go ahead and figure out what we want to do with layer 2. You can see that indigo really got pushed up to the top, so we need to add a little bit more of that. And knowing that turquoise is going to want to push up into it, we'll have to make some adjustments to make sure we can see that indigo. So I'm going to go kind of heavy on the indigo, not as much water, mostly paint. Get that in there to get those nice dark areas at the top. Rinse off my brush, tap off the excess water, come in with my turquoise, and again, not much water on here. I don't want it to push around too much. All right, let's rinse off that brush, and now we will add just plain water to get it to fan out a little bit here into the Cascade Green. First layer. Just like that. All right, now I'm going to pull some of my Cascade Green. Just to get some dimension, we'll add another layer there. All right, then I'll come in with my clean water at the bottom to make sure that we have no hard lines. Try to avoid that as much as possible. I might come in with a little bit more turquoise here. Push it down so that we can see some of it through that Cascade Green, which I like to push up into the turquoise. Nice. So I'm going to let that dry and see if we need another layer or if this is good. Okay, layer 2 is dry, and it made a real hard line there. So definitely need a layer 3. I'm not going to add any more indigo though, because it is just about as dark as it can be on the top. So I'm just going to go straight to indigo, or straight to the turquoise. And add it right underneath it and see if we can get it to mix around a little bit and fade a little bit better. The cat finally just left my lap because I was getting impatient waiting for the paint to dry. So I used my embossing gun to speed up the drying process a little bit on it, and she didn't like that, so she left. Which is, I mean, I love my cat, but as everyone knows, you can't wake a sleeping cat on your lap, so you just kind of get stuck there. Yes, so she left anyway. Looking good there. Let's see how this one dries. See if we need to come in with a layer 4 or if this will be okay. I'm going to come in with just a little bit more turquoise and some spaces over here. Clean off my brush. Fade that out. Maybe a little more. The scratch paper is actually extra long, so I have a little bit more space to play with. What I use these scrap papers for is what I use to write my thank you notes for my Etsy orders. So I gotta have room to write people's names right next to the galaxies that I paint here. All right, lovely. I think it looks nice. We'll see how it dries and see if it needs any more attention. Okay, that layer is done, but I don't like it, so I'm gonna keep going. That's what we do. So again, I need to come back in with some indigo and bring it down a little bit more. And then I want more of I can see a little bit of the granulation here, but that turquoise spread too far. So I'm just gonna keep bringing it down a little bit farther because I have the room to play. So that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'll show you an example of one. I did another one, and it only took, I'm done with it now after that many layers. I can show you how different they can turn out every time you do it. You just kind of go with the flow, right? Conditions are a little bit different every time you do it, so they turn out different. Maybe use a little bit more water, a little less water. All right, so I need a lot of Cascade Green. So I'm gonna really load that up because I want more granulation. I think it'll turn out really nice. You know, the more layers you put on, the more depth you get out of it. So it's okay that we're having to put on so many layers. It just means it'll be have more depth. There we go. All right, so I'll let that dry, see what it looks like. When it is, I'll show you this one. It was a bigger one that I did, but that one turned out nice. It's got some really lovely granulation. You see that cascade, kind of that goldish green that kind of clumps together in those spots. Looks nice. You can still see that turquoise. It's funny, turquoise popping through underneath it, but for whatever reason, I like that one. So that one was done with only 3 layers. This one that I just finished looks like it's gonna need 4. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. All right, this layer is dry and I gotta go in with one more layer. I want more of a transition from this really dark to this kind of a medium. So I'm gonna come in, again, not with my indigo, but with my middle of the road turquoise here. Kind of fill it in and hopefully get more of a transition. It's impossible to tell when it's wet what it's going to look like. I think this has got to be the last layer because since I'm using a lower quality paper, it's starting to disintegrate a little bit, and we don't want that, obviously. So this will be the last layer. It's getting touched a little too much. We will just end with whatever it looks like. We'll call it good, because you don't want your paper pilling up all over the place. That isn't good either. That's probably the worst thing you can do to a painting. Because then all the work that you've put in is ruined because your paper is ruined. All right, we'll touch it there. You can see kind of those little pieces coming up of the paper. So it's been wet too many times. Let's come in. I'm going to actually use my embossing gun. embossing gun to dry. You can see those little pieces there. The paper feels like it's been worn down a bit. You can actually just kind of pull those pieces off. The top looks like it's still wet, but it's not. It's just super saturated with pink. Yeah, too many layers on this one. I did too many, but that's part of the process. You learn. But I still love the colors. Like I said, this one turned out really beautifully. I love the way that one looked. And that was only with 3 layers, but for whatever reason, this one didn't want to play how I wanted it to, but it will still work because I'm going to cut these into smaller pieces after I get the stars on them, and it will still look beautiful, I am sure. So there you go. We have indigo, turquoise, phthalo turquoise, and cascade green.